I approach this public prayer, particularly in legislative setting, from a personal standpoint. My wife is a member of our county council in Montgomery County, Maryland. She has been there for 12 years, and one of the things she was surprised by is, as she says, how often we get prayed over. And she thought they were there to work on the zoning code. And I think it is more troubling, and Madison would find it more troubling than the court did. Because, and I don't mean to be flip about it, you're at a county council meeting to work on the zoning, or to work on minimum wage, or whatever it might be. It's not a moment of religious observation. It's not your freedom of conscience. And it is done for purely symbolic reasons. Nobody in that room is having a religious experience. They are just indulging this clergy person, and then going through the ritual, and then, okay, now we can do our business. So that very character of it as a symbolic act is what's objectionable, I think, to Madison, and it is an establishment of religion, which we should be more concerned about.
Burt, do you see that differently?
Well, first of all, I have to take responsibility for that case. I lost the antecedent case before that, in which the Supreme Court back in the 70s held that congressional chaplains were valid, and therefore the Nebraska unicameral legislature could have its own chaplain, even though it looks like an establishment clause to have an official chaplain for the legislature. And the Supreme Court pointed out that Madison voted for a chaplain for Congress when he was a member of Congress, and therefore they said Madison wouldn't have cared. Madison thought that it was okay because after all he voted for it. Now what they ignored was that later in life Madison said the one vote that he felt worst about in his whole life was the vote in favor of the chaplaincy, and he said, I did it out of pure expedience. He says, and what it did is taught me the difference between what a politician has to do to survive and what a judge should do in a principle basis to enforce the law. He said it was unconstitutional when I did it, but I did it. And that now has come down to us. We're haunted by Madison's vote. Because of the assumption that these kinds of symbolic religious observances in the context of governance are fundamentally harmless. And why are we so upset about it? And the problem is that it essentially denigrates the importance of religion. It reduces religion to a kind of white bread symbolism. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. And what offended me most about the Supreme Court opinion is they seem to say, we don't understand why these people are so upset. All they had to do is just go and stand there for a second. They don't have to listen if they don't want to. And the answer is, it's the dissenter's conscience. Most of us are never upset by what government does. I wouldn't be upset if I had to pay a tax to pay for somebody else's religious belief. I would actually think that that would be a good thing. But my friends would be unbelievably opposed to it, and therefore the Constitution says that we worry about their conscience. We should be worrying about the people in that community who have to go up and ask for a zoning variance, or have to go up and ask for something that council is going to give them, and have to stand there and bow their head while somebody invokes Christ in that room, and the people don't believe in Christ. But they have to pretend they do, because in order to get what they want from the council, you don't start by insulting them. And I just think the court completely underestimated the psychological force of being forced to endure something like that. It is important, and Madison knew it was important. And I wish the current Supreme Court majority realized how important it was.
But to be fair, we do have as you found out in your case, there's a lot of a long string of cases that say these symbolic kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
In,
Well,
God, in God we trust on the money.
In God
so-
we trust.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
beginning,
Pledge of Allegiance.
God save this
Yeah,
honorable
yeah,
court.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the way the Supreme
Yeah.
Court opens. And it opens because it's treated as symbolic. But it seemed to me this is further along. You have to, you can walk out, you can sit down, you can express your dissent, but then try to ask for the zoning variance. So it just seems to me to be a much more coercive behavior than the ordinary symbolic stuff.